and welcome to Town Hall 2025. I'm your moderator, Daniel Crow. The original Town Hall was hosted by Jack Faust, a true giant of Oregon history from 1980 until 1993. Town Hall was a weekly public affairs program on Channel 2, featuring discussions, often contentious, between public officials, experts, and everyday Oregonians on topics that range from the serious, like child abuse, to the somewhat less so, like Bigfoot. Halfway through his run, Jack even had on a young 16-year-old from Mount Angel on his way to West Point. Yours truly. With Jack's blessing, it is my great honor and solemn responsibility to carry on the baton that Jack carried so well. Our goal here is to revive that spirit of robust, peaceable public debate, which has always characterized our Oregon way. Together, I think that we can do some good for all of our people. And we began with Series 1, the race for Oregon Republican Party Chair 2025. Soon to come, Series 2, the race for Oregon Democratic Party Chair 2025. If you, our audience, decide that talking with one another rather than past one another is preferable, well, maybe we'll be getting to know each other a little bit better. Welcome to Town Hall 2025, Series 1, the race for Oregon Republican Party Chair. I'm your host, Daniel Crow, and before we begin, I'd like to lay out the ground rules. We begin with two special series. Series 1, the race for Oregon Republican Party Chair 2025, and Series 2, the race for Democratic Party Chair 2025. Since Oregon Republicans will choose their leader first on February 22nd, we will begin with them. Oregon Democrats will choose their leader on March 12th. For Series 1, we've invited all 7 declared candidates for the Oregon Republican Party Chair to appear on this program. In alphabetical order, candidates Gabriel Bueller, Jerry Cummings, Ben Edtl, Joe Ray Perkins, and Angelita Sanchez have accepted, and we will be recording an episode for each of them. Candidate Richard Jolly did not respond to our invitation. The final declared candidate, Oregon Republican Party Chair Justin Huang, has agreed to be our guest for a special retrospective episode. When we sent out the invitations, every candidate was given this preface and a list of the 3 subject areas that we intend to cover: your executive experience, Oregon culture and political history, the role of the Oregon Republican Party going forward. None of the candidates were provided the questions we intend to ask, but we encouraged all of them to carefully review the Oregon Republican Party bylaws and platform, as we intend to explore those areas with specificity. My role in this program is to act as moderator, not judge. I am not here to pick either the Republican or the Democratic Party chair. Therefore, anything which you, our viewers, might interpret as a personal opinion on my part should be disregarded. With the possible exception of my 81-year-old mom, still living in Mount Angel, who cares about my opinion anyway? Each candidate is a guest, and this is Oregon. Therefore, each guest will be treated with compassion, dignity, and respect. But these men and women are campaigning for a position of public responsibility. Therefore, my questions are designed to be neither easy nor comfortable to answer. To keep us honest, we will invite a well-respected county chair from the party we're interviewing for each series. In Series 1, the race for Oregon Republican Party Chair, we are joined by Baker County Republican Party Chair Danny Johnson, who will act as referee. He is uncommitted to any particular candidate, which is important. For Series 2, the race for Oregon Democratic Party Chair, our referee will be an uncommitted and universally respected county chair from the Oregon Democratic Party to ensure that every candidate is treated fairly yet firmly. Each candidate guest will have 3 challenge flags that they can throw at any point during our discussion if they feel that they need more time to answer a question or if they feel my question is unfair in any way. If a candidate wants to use his or her challenge flag, they will state their objection and Chair Johnson in this series will rule on it. In each series, the referee's ruling will be final. In Series 1, Chair Johnson will follow up with his own questions after each of our 3 subject areas. His job is to explore areas which he believes are relevant to understanding each candidate as a potential future state chair. Since the county chairs actually have to work alongside their state party chair, I'm interested in what the county chair thinks is important. I also want to note that our referees have complete discretion to ask whatever they want, but I've reminded each of them that they are speaking for all of their fellow county chairs. If you, our audience, find this longer format discussion worthwhile, we intend to move forward with subsequent series on all of Oregon's political parties, minor and major. Each party will provide a well-respected, uncommitted county chair from their own party to help us ensure that our conversations are substantial and informative. Later this summer, we intend to branch out to address issues that Oregonians and Friends of Oregon care about: public health, education, abortion, gun rights, governmental power, the growing urban-rural divide, land use planning, and so forth. As I mentioned in our pre-taped intro, our goal here is to revive that spirit of robust, peaceable public debate, which has always characterized our Oregon way. Oregonians don't find shouting persuasive, and I believe that our people are starving for substantive, grown-up conversations about matters which impact us all, because I believe in self-government and I believe in you. A good man, former Montana Attorney General Tim Fox, once taught me why we even have politics. And I quote, "Politics exists so that we can live in peace alongside those with whom we will never agree. As a career professional soldier, I can assure you that civil wars are far easier to start than they are to stop. So let's keep talking Oregon." Section 1, your executive experience. Before we begin with questions and answers, I'd like to give you, Mr. Ben Edtl, an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us why you are running for Oregon Republican Party chair. Ben, the floor is yours.
Yeah, my name's Ben Edtl. I've been a political operative, as they say, since 2020 when we lost our family businesses in the heart of Portland during the lockdowns and the lawlessness. And I refused to follow those lockdowns and paid the ultimate price with the business, but also got kind of catapulted into politics as I was canceled by the hard left. And I didn't shut up as they wished I would have done, and I just didn't. I kept speaking. I knew we had a First Amendment right, and I knew why we have a First Amendment right. And so I used it, and it is very, very powerful because from there I began a group called Free Oregon, and Free Oregon became the largest civil rights group in the state of Oregon. We brought more than a dozen lawsuits, helped fund and supported more than a dozen lawsuits to challenge the vaccine mandates and the mask mandates. And we built a statewide infrastructure to help take over county Republican parties with Free Oregon, MAGA, America First, people, leaders, and we brought a lot of people to the Republican Party. And I've been working in politics ever since. I'm the Republican nominee in Senate District 19 since 2022, and the Republican nominee in House District 37 since 2024. And I take those responsibilities very seriously, and I continue to represent the Republicans in my district, but I also represent Oregonians because I believe what Republicans want and what Oregonians want ultimately are the same thing. So that's about my political history. And why I decided to run for chair. I really didn't decide to run for chair. I was told to run for chair, and so I did. And the source that told me to do it, I follow every single day. I live one day at a time. I plan for one day, and in that process, I've gone from where I was in 2020 to where I am now. So I just continue to practice the KISS principle and keep it simple and follow directions.
Excellent. Now, Mr. Edtl, as we were talking about before we went on the show, we had a few technical problems, and we understand that you have a hard time this afternoon. So we're going to get through as many of the questions as we are. But I want to encourage our viewers that if we have to end earlier than any of the other episodes, you should not read anything into that, nor should you hold that against Mr. Edtl. The fault is entirely our own. So having said that, the first thing I'd like to follow up with you, Mr. Edtl, is you'd mentioned, just to clarify for our viewers, you'd mentioned that you were the Republican nominee for a Senate district and a House district. Do you mean that you're a precinct committee person, or were you the nominee for those particular offices?
I was nominee for those for State Senate in District 19 and House Representatives in House District 37.
And with District 19 and House District 37, can you give us a sense of where those districts are?
Yeah, so mathematically, District 19 is essentially a D60. That means it's got a 60% registration advantage. District 37 as a House district has about a 20% Democrat registration advantage. So these are kamikaze missions, but we need to fly the plane into the battleship.
And what did you learn from those races?
I learned that there's a lot of people who are very misinformed. There's a lot of misinformed voters. And when I say misinformed, I mean they believe things that simply aren't true. And we really need to combat that. And that's the opportunity that the election cycles really give Republicans in blue districts an opportunity to get a platform to combat the current belief systems that are prevalent across especially our Portland metro area, which is where I'm in the South Portland metro area. So I also learned that a lot of Republicans have left the Portland metro area and have left the state since 2020, and a lot of Democrats have left the heart of Multnomah County, the heart of the city, and they've moved into the suburbs where I reside. And so we're seeing a migration as a result of the political policies in the state and in the city. However, I think that too many Democrats continue to vote Democratic no matter what, even though they're fleeing the conditions that were created by their own leaders. But I don't know if that's all the way true. I do not believe that the election data that we have and the election results that we have are legitimate. I don't believe that they're truthful. And so I think it makes it really one of the challenges with our election systems is that you can't trust the outcome and the results as being real. And so I think that creates a real challenge for us politically to understand our messaging capabilities and stuff like that.
Did you grow up here, or did you come to Oregon?
I was born and raised in the city of Portland. My mom and dad lived on 37th and Hawthorne in Southeast Portland. When I was born, I grew up in Southeast as a child, and then I moved in high school over to the King District in Northeast Portland, right off MLK. And I lived there through my high school years. And then as an adult, I lived in Northwest Portland and around. And today I live in Tualatin.
During the 2022 Oregon gubernatorial cycle, independent candidate for governor Betsy Johnson got in a little bit of hot water with Oregonians for characterizing Portland as the city of roaches. Since you are from Portland, what do you say to those allegations that Portland is somehow different than the rest of the state?
Well, for the most part, the roaches I think she was referring to were the elected officials. But yeah, they've destroyed our city, and Portland is my home. Anytime I've left Portland and gone to other cities, and I've come back and I've taken that drive down I-84 and I see our skyline, I've always been inspired. I've always loved Portland. I'm a libertarian Republican. I'm more on the libertarian side, and so I've always enjoyed the libertarian aspect of Portland. But in 2020, it flipped into a totalitarian city. And that was what was unacceptable to me. And I fought it. I fought it alone. And then as people joined me, I fought it with others. But initially, that had to be stopped. And so what I refer to back to the election system, we have, I think that they can't win elections. I think that our moderate Democrats that were beloved by Portlanders, like Rene Gonzalez and Dan Ryan and a few of the others, I believe they won their election legitimately this last cycle, because what happened is that Multnomah County on election day, November 5th, 140,000 ballots were returned in one day. And that's never happened since vote by mail. It's unprecedented, but that's how many ballots they needed to fix the outcomes of the races. And what Portland did is it took 2 clicks backwards from 2020. It went all the way back to the Johann Ardesty days, and we have an absolute radical left commission, and we have a mayor who is absolutely not prepared to be the mayor of Portland. And so we're facing another potential disaster. But I think that the Trump administration is going to be able to really put enough pressure on them to keep them in line. But we'll see. But I think our elections need to be investigated and audited. However, that's against the law in Oregon to have any third-party audit elections. So there we go.
From the outside, each party can look a little bit like a monolith. But anyone who's spent time in politics knows that political parties are comprised of constantly shifting coalitions which organize around what they believe are the most urgent issues facing the people whom they serve. How would you describe the current Oregon Republican coalition?
Well, I think that the Republican Party in Oregon is the rope in a game of tug-of-war between the legislative caucuses and the PCPs. And if I were elected chair, I would slice that rope and give that rope all the way to the PCPs. and rebuild all of our coalitions. I think that what we need to do as a party is we have to grow. And I think there's the America First MAGA wing of our party. We have a Christian MAGA. We have a Christian wing of our party. We have a libertarian wing of our party. And I believe that America First MAGA can bring and unite those different wings. But the party itself has really no power, has no influence. And until we cut the line, cut the rope between us and the Republican caucuses, we're not going to have any power or influence. And so I think it's incredibly important that the ORP represents the average Republican taxpayer or the average taxpayer in general. And so, in our bylaws, we talk about family, we talk about law enforcement, we talk about energy, we talk about all these things that are so common sense. That if we can have those common sense, maintain this common sense platform and actually execute it politically, that we have a chance at changing Oregon. But until we cut that rope from the elected officials, we're not going to be able to change anything as we've seen.
From 1859 until 1985, Oregon Republicans dominated Oregon politics. Since 1986, not so much. What changed?
Vote by mail.
What is your plan to return Oregon Republicanism to relevance?
Well, I think I have some ideas on how we can become relevant, and I've been presenting this across the state everywhere I go to speak about it. We need to have a leader who's relevant, and we haven't had that. And frankly, nobody who's running is really relevant. And I think that if they chose to elect me as the leader of the Oregon GOP, that very day, the Oregon GOP will become relevant. That's because I don't know. I'll tell you why. I know where I get my power from, and it's not any human being. And so I don't need political influence or political power or anything like that. I'm not going to gain anything by being the ORP chairman. My desire here is to help make the ORP relevant by becoming chairman. And if I'm not chairman, that's fine too, because I'm not too worried about that. I can continue to do my thing and be relevant on the outside of the party, which is just as fine. And probably I would have more freedom in that position anyways. But I'm willing to sacrifice some of that personal freedom, some of that political freedom, and actually lead the Oregon GOP into relevance, which is exactly what I would do. I guarantee you that if I were elected GOP chair, there would be multiple stories statewide about that fact. And if anyone else who's running got elected GOP chair, there probably wouldn't be that many stories written about it, because everyone would know, especially in the media, that the Oregon GOP will continue to be irrelevant.
Privately, many Oregon elected officials of all parties consider the activist base of their political party apparatuses to be dumping grounds for malcontents and out-of-touch ideologues. How has your experience equipped you to herd these cats?
I guess I'm one of those cats. I think that you herd the cats by using the word herd. Let's listen to them. The people who are on what I've learned as someone who's gone from an activist to a political figure, that transition is challenging, but I have experience with that transition. And I think we need to create more political leaders out of our activists, because that's where passion and purpose comes from. That's where it's born, you see. And what we have right now is we have politicians who came out of nowhere, and someone went up to them and said, "Do you want to be a politician?" And they said, "God, I would love that," because maybe they're narcissistic or something like that. And they become politicians, and they do that. They play politics, and they play it really, really well. The people that we have leading us, not all of them, of course, we have some wonderful, passionate legislators and commissioners and leaders across the state. But what we do also have is we have those really good political players who aren't really looking for how they can benefit society or the people they represent, but they're benefiting themselves. And you can see it when you look at specific legislatures' voting records and where they get their money. And we need to eradicate those people out of our political game, and we need to get people who are passionate, who are literally doing this job for the betterment of the next generation and for the betterment of our society and the betterment of our state, because those are the activists. Those are the people who are out there doing it without being told, without being asked, without being paid for it. And I think that they're going to make better leaders moving forward than the people who are playing horse trading and playing politics out in Salem.
What do you believe is possible for the Oregon Republican Party chair to accomplish, and how will Oregonians be able to measure whether your tenure is a success or a failure?
Look, my tenure would be measured by one thing, okay? Relevance. Have we made a difference? Have we moved the needle? Have we changed? Have we turned the dial, okay? And money, see, in politics, a lot of them talk about, well, money, we've got to raise money, we've got to do this stuff. No one's gonna invest in a company who's failing, okay? It's like nobody does that. Nobody invests in a person who's failing. You don't give a bum on the street 10 grand, because you know what they do with it? They kill themselves with the 10 grand. They'll just buy drugs and they'll stick it in their bodies and they'll overdose. So you don't want to give people who are going down or companies who are going down, you never want to give them money because they're not doing the right things. And in politics, you got two things. You got power and money. And politics is a power game. And you got to set money aside and first go after the influence and the power, because that's what's going to bring the money. Because you got to be effective, you have to be able to gain power in politics. That's all there is to it. But where do you get the power from? Some people think you get it from the money. That's not true. I've gotten my power without any money. Well, I've raised some money, but I've raised it from individuals. I'm a successful fundraiser. I've raised probably $240,000, $250,000 in my political career just in the last 3 years alone. And so I've done that by doing effective work and having effective messaging. So let's be effective, right? Let's become relevant first. That's the first step. And I think that you become relevant by focusing on accountability. If our number one priority as a party is to get Republicans elected, but yet we don't have any power or authority to hold those elected accountable, then what power do we really have? We're actually just being used. And so what we really need to do is we need to have the balance of the work and the effort of the county parties across the state that are knocking doors and making those calls. We need to balance that with accountability, to where if we elect a Republican who then turns their back on us and starts doing things like voting for the wildfire mapping bill and chief sponsoring bills that are putting windmills off the coast of Coos Bay, and co-sponsoring bills to tax 10 cents every paper bag we get at the grocery store, and giving our state forests away to Oregon State. We need to be able to hold those guys accountable and take them out of office if we put them there, because the elected people should get their power from the base of the party, but they're not. The base of the party is seeking power from our elected officials. It's totally backwards. We got to flip that around. We'll become relevant.
What would success and what would failure look like for you as chair?
I don't think I could fail any harder than the ORP has already failed. The ORP is irrelevant. The ORP can't raise money. They are, of course, a conduit for congressional funds, but that doesn't mean any money went to the ORP. And so it's really just kind of useless. And so at the county level, the county parties kick ass. Again, they work hard. I know they do. I got Clackamas, I got Washington. These guys are great counties, okay? And I know the counties across the state, they're doing stuff. They're putting in the work, but then they get up to that ceiling of the state party and there's nowhere to go from there. As an entrepreneur for 25 years and a CEO and an executive, my primary objective at every organization is to build culture and to make sure there's no barriers and ceilings in place. Don't stop people from doing good work. And what we see when we have leaders who stop people from doing good work or don't reward the people who are doing good work, it's just the wrong people in the wrong seats, right? You gotta have people that actually know how to run an organization at the very top, or you're just going to be stifled continuously. And that's what we have. And as a result, the ORP has become a social club, and I want no part of a social club. I'm here to create an effective organization, lead an effective organization, and that effectiveness could be measured in power, influence, and ultimately, and at the end, money.
On the 5th of February of this year at 9:07 p.m., you made a post on what used to be Twitter, is now X, wherein you said, quote, "We are at a crossroads. The Oregon Republican Party has a choice to make. One, we go full MAGA/Oregonians first and empower the PCPs to hold our representatives accountable. Or two, we submit to the Dorchester Republicans in the caucuses who put themselves first." This Saturday, I will send this post to every voting delegate. Make your public comments below. Exactly to whom are you referring when you say the Dorchester Republicans in the caucuses?
So the state of Washington, the state of Oregon, state of Hawaii, state of California, they all have different Republican groups. In Washington, for example, they're called the mainstream Republicans. Oregon doesn't have a name for our mainstream Republicans. And so I coined the term Dorchester because the Dorchester Republicans is a special club of elite Republicans who get together and play politics. And while they're playing politics, people like me are losing our businesses. People like me are paying out the ass for electric bills, and our kids are being taught wackadoo stuff in our schools. And there's tampons. In fact, in my son, who's a fifth grader, they got tampons in his bathroom, in the boys' bathroom. It's pretty wild stuff when you consider the fact that every single House Republican, except for 2, voted for the tampon bill. So these are the Dorchester Republicans. They get together in Dorchester and they're looking to make money. They're looking to bring money in. They're looking to make sure that money comes into their districts. And in order to do that, they're actually selling their representatives short. And so the same thing happens in mainstream in Washington State. So just 2 weeks ago, the mainstream Republicans had another secret meeting where they have people sign NDAs. And they're actually working to do away with the precinct process of elections. And so they're going to do away with PCPs. And this is all communist stuff. And a communist, you could be a Democrat or a Republican. It doesn't really matter. A communist means all power to the state. And we have to be very, very keen on the fact that these Republicans, these Dorchester Republicans, are looking for power for themselves. They're not looking for much else, and we need to put a stop to that, or at least we need to combat that, or at least at the very least offer an alternative to that. And in Oregon, the reason we're so screwed as a party and so irrelevant is because those Dorchester Republicans who are really driving the legislative caucuses, they're actually holding the ORP down by controlling it and holding it down. We're not getting the voice. We're not able to be relevant.
So when you say Dorchester Republicans, do you have any particular names in mind?
I don't think I want to give any names right now, but I mean, you could follow me on social media and I do name some names. I mean, if you look at the rising star of Dorchester this last round, David Brocksmith, and that's the guy when I mentioned all those bills, the 10-cent bag tax, the windmills, the wildfire mapping bill, the tampons in little boys' bathrooms, all those bills were helped, came to reality by his voting yes throughout the entire process or sponsoring. So, and that's a 78% Republican registered district. So there's no reason, there's not like he's in a purple district. So it makes no sense.
Okay. On the 7th of February at 4:56 p.m., you sent out an email to the members of the Oregon Republican Party State Central Committee, the title of which was yes, comma, or the subject of which I suppose I should say is yes, comma, Free Oregon paid me. And apparently it was in response to an allegation that you stole or took $70,000 of money for your work at Free Oregon, which is, as I understand it, an advocacy group here in Oregon. I want to give you the opportunity to share with our viewers exactly what your side of the story is.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one side of the story, and the side of the story is that I worked full time at Free Oregon, and it's a 501c4, and we had a massive impact across the state. And anybody that knows that knows that the board approved me to have a small salary. It was very small; it was $38,000, and we had another probably 100,000+ that went to lawsuits, and so. I ran that full time and that's what made it successful. And I think it's important that we start to really look at, our success as a party, our effectiveness will bring in money. If we're effectively doing something, we're going to match up with donors that support what it is that we're doing. It's very much like a business. You have a target audience, you have a work that you do, and then you got a target audience. I've raised, I don't know, like $70,000 running for offices that I was not going to win based on voter registrations, disadvantages, right? But the reason people donated to me was because they liked my message and they wanted to help get my message out. And so I was successfully raising money. I didn't get a penny from the ORP. I didn't get a penny from the caucuses. Of course, that's fine. We found it from my citizens and throughout the state of Oregon because they wanted to elevate my message. And so when you can do something effectively, then you can actually bring in money based on what you're doing effectively. And so Free Oregon was highly effective, and we raised a bunch of money in a year and a half. And we put that money to filing major lawsuits. And some of those lawsuits we won and some of those lawsuits we lost, but the pressure ended up ending the mask mandates and ending the vaccine mandates. And so I'm proud of that work. I'm proud of everybody that came together to do that. And I didn't take one single penny. Every penny that I got was approved by the board. And people want to attack because they are scared of me. We have caucus leaders who are scared of me becoming the ORP chair because they know when I'm the ORP chair, I'm going to call them out and I'm going to show the truth and I'm going to rally our base and I'm going to excite people and I'm going to fire people up and we're going to put in new leaders. And so they come out and they work these stealth attacks against me and they make stuff up. I mean, there was one email that went out that said that I was behind an article from Mother Brown or whatever it was that I said all brown people need to be locked up. And it's funny that somebody who's probably never met a brown person is writing that and trying to say that it was me that made the letter. I never even heard of the letter. Like, it's wild. The politics is funny. They're desperate. They're desperate. So that desperation is understandable because when I am elected chair, we're going to take those people out and we're going to keep the really good ones and keep the strong ones. And we're going to unify these factions of our party, the people in power and the people who help support the people in power. There's a synergy there. There's a need for a strong relationship. And the only way you can have a strong relationship is based on authenticity or power and control. Right now, we're under the power and control of the caucus. It's not authenticity.
If I understood you correctly, when you had begun your description and answers to my questions, you're based in the Portland area.
Yep.
There have been reports that you were given a job in Douglas County. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm the CEO of the Umpqua Public Transportation District. Now, when I took over as CEO of the district was 2.5 weeks from insolvency. ODOT was threatening to pull all funds because the prior CEO and the prior board had a tremendous mismanagement of funding. In fact, the CEO blew through $1 million in reserves and had failed to meet deadlines on a federal grant by which ODOT had fronted $250,000 worth of equipment. And so ODOT was demanding that $250,000 back or would withhold that funding. And when we actually took over the board, Michaela Hammerson is the chairwoman of the board, and we brought our people in and filled that board up with, filled the vacancies up with everyone resigning that was there years prior, and didn't want to face the music on that situation. And they're good people. They just I think there was a lot of lying and BSing going on. And so some of them fell for it. And the job of a board is not to fall for the BS. But nonetheless, we took control of that board and they hired me as the CEO, which is the work that I've done for 25 years. I'm a CEO. And I went in there and we pushed hard on ODOT and challenged them legally to protect the funds for that district. And then we rearranged and restructured the organization from the leadership level to make sure the right people in the right seats so that we can make the compliance. And we've done that 100%. We're 100% compliant. It's crazy. In just that amount of time, we have a strong relationship with ODOT. We've also, and despite our strong relationship with ODOT, we've been able to begin implementing all of Donald Trump's executive orders as a government agency, merit-based hiring, and all these great things. And so we're doing that. And I think it's really key as a party that we're focused on taking control of government agencies. The Democrats crush us at this. But we know how to do it. We know how to get in there and take control of these agencies. And this is an agency that's in David Brock Smith's district, and he's the senator, and he put an extraordinary effort to destroy my reputation and Michaela's in Douglas County. He'd go on the radio and talk for 10 minutes about how bad of a person I was and she was. And it all failed. Nobody listens to him. They all know he's full of crap. And so, but we successfully turned that district around. So that's what's really important is when the Republicans who lead the Republican Party, the Oregon GOP, begin to take government agencies, we pose a massive threat to the uniparty establishment. And so one of the things I've always liked to tell people is that I go out and I draw fire. And I draw fire because I'm in the arena. I'm in the fight. And when I draw fire, I want everybody to look and see where it comes from. And that's how we shine a light and scatter the cockroaches that were referred to by Betsy Johnson relating to Portland. But the cockroaches aren't just in Portland. They're in red districts too.
Okay, on the Umpqua Public Transit District, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So I want to cut to the heart of the matter with respect to what the answer that you just gave. So the Umpqua Public Transit District is based down in Douglas County.
That's correct.
Okay. So please explain to our viewers how have you ever run a public transit district before you were hired as the CEO of this?
No, never ran one before.
And this is a publicly funded body.
That's right.
And so how does a politically active person who lives in Portland end up getting hired? You didn't relocate to Roseburg, did you?
No.
Okay. And so please explain to our viewers how a person in Portland ends up getting as I understand it, a six-figure job down in Roseburg and doesn't relocate down there.
Yeah, it's actually very low paying. I mean, I'm probably worth 3 times that. But I think it's important that we have successful, efficiently ran government agencies, especially with transportation, because transportation touches me as an important government service. Because I grew up in Portland, I took TriMet to football and basketball practice and to school. That's how we got around, and so. It's very important, and I'll exactly tell you how someone like me becomes the CEO of the district. I'm the best person for the job, hands down, and that's been proven because in 90 days we turned an unimaginably horrible situation around, and that's what everybody said. That's what David Brock Smith said. That's what his friends in the media down there said. Is that how is Ben Edtl going to do this? He's never run a government agency. Running a government agency is really not that complicated. Okay, it's very simple. It's just the same as running a private company. It's the same thing. There's more regulation, but I actually appreciate the regulation on government agencies because it's our government agency. We need to regulate it and we need to have accountability. But here's the thing that I found out, and this is what's really fascinating. We spend, as an agency, $400,000 to $500,000 a year in a small rural transportation district. And Roseburg's not that small. There's 100-some thousand people that we serve in that area. So it's necessary. But the poorest people that live in Douglas County rely on that public transportation. And I really value the work that we're doing there. But I'll tell you, we spend $400,000 a year in taxpayer dollars serving ODOT's compliance requirements. These are people who are dedicated compliance people that interface with our subordinate funding recipients and that coordinate with ODOT via the FTA and so on and so forth. So we had to put the right people in the right seats to be able to meet those compliance requirements. And I do believe that, there's things that we're doing right now to actually eliminate some of the dependence on state and federal funds so that we're pulling money in from the local community that isn't earmarked for compliance issues. Because sometimes they can come in and say, here's a $500,000 grant. Yay, we get to buy a new bus. But then it costs us $200,000 a year just to meet the compliance on that $500,000 grant. So you really have to look at these things. And I'll tell you, I think a government person, and we had a person who was running that agency that had been in transportation for 30 years, ran it straight into the ground. Okay. we need to have people who know how to lead organizations in charge of our government agencies so that they can run efficiently. Look what Elon Musk is doing. Has he ever run a government agency? No, he hasn't. And he's kicking ass and taking names. Has Donald Trump ever run a government agency before he became president? No, and he's kicking ass and he's taking names. It's right people, right seats, period, end of story.
Were you hired into this job by a political ally?
Absolutely, I was. It's funny you say that because political allies are who you work with in politics. So you would be a stupid fool if you took control of a board and then hired your enemy to be the CEO. They would make you look bad. They'd make you lose the next election. So when people say really ignorant things like that, it's laughable. And what it is, it's not you being ignorant, my friend. It's what people in power say to people who don't know better so that they'll repeat it and then it becomes more of a reality. But the truth is that you absolutely work with your political allies. Who else are you going to work with? And so that's exactly right. I would, as leader of the Oregon GOP, I would create an entire division of the GOP in Oregon focused solely on how to take control of government agencies. Because isn't that not what an election is? You run for office to control something, to have power over it. And so when you hear Republicans in the legislature say that, no, this is bad. We need lifelong government people to run these agencies, not anybody from the private sector. They're spitting in the face of Trump and Musk and all the people that were supposedly that are having so much success right now as we speak. So you really gotta ask yourself, what's the motive of these people? I would have a whole division set up for taking water boards, transportation districts, and when we get it, then we hire our best people that are CEO people, leaders, business owners, executives, to take control of those districts and execute them and answer to a board of their peers and their friends and allies, because that's how you make things work.
Will you continue to accept money from politically connected work if you become the chairman of the Oregon Republican Party?
As long as it's legal, yes.
And can you please address for our viewers? There's a widespread perception in Oregon of cronyism on the part of the majority party. These are the allegations that are made particularly by their political opponents. Are you sensitive to the fact that that these things can hold the appearance of impropriety?
No, listen. You know what cronyism even is? Cronyism is when you pass laws and then you make sure that money goes to your friends in the private sector. Cronyism is when you have tax increases or like an emergency orders for hundreds of millions of dollars, and then you give it to NGOs who are run by your people, who then turn that money around that they take from tax dollars and give it back to your campaign PACs. That's cronyism. What this is paying a man to do a job a third of what he's worth, right? And to do a great job. And then that job is delivered back to the government for that expense. That is not cronyism. Go look the definition of cronyism up, man. You got to look that up before you ask that question.
And just the last question before we end on section one, and I hand the floor over to Chair Johnson. When was the last time you appeared before a hostile audience, and how did you persuade them to come over your side? And if you can specifically share with us the example, that would be wonderful.
Washington, I'm an elected PCP in Washington County, and it's totally changed there in terms of the executive committee. People that I came up in politics with are now alt delegates or have been moved aside. And I went in there actually, I think it's like 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it was hostile. Because Gabe is very upset that I'm running for chair. Gabe and I go way back. We've been political friends and allies for years. He's taken it personally, and he shouldn't, but he has. And so there's a lot of emotions around that. But I went in there anyway, and I talked to him, and they cut me off and did some other things that were uncomfortable. And I don't know if I persuaded any of them, but I showed up, and that's what matters. Showing up is what matters. And you got to have a leader with the balls to go show up. Go show up to the political fight. Show up to the place where it's a bunch of Democrats and they disagree with you, and try to convince them. I was at the Clackamas County State Fair last summer, and I had these two women come up to me, and they were lesbians and they were very far leftist, and they wanted to have a fight. And I was able to totally disarm them and actually have find agreement and common ground. And it was about a 45-minute conversation that everybody at the some of my Republican fellows were like, "Why are you even talking to them?" And I'm like, "Because that's the I grew up in Portland. My parents, my family, they're all far leftists. Like I can talk to them. Like they don't intimidate me. They don't change my value system. They can't, and I can't really change theirs, but I can at least find common ground. And so finding common ground with our political adversaries is an important thing to do. But you don't do it to to sacrifice your own integrity. You just find that common ground and you just say, hey, look, let's set this one aside. We're not going to agree on that. What can we agree on? What can we find? Because then we're human again. See, we got to have that. We got to bring humanity back. And I'll tell you, with our election systems, I will almost guarantee you that if the Trump administration calls for an audit and we get an audit going into 2026, we're going to find out that Oregonians feel very differently than what we're told that they feel. I have people who are working in Multnomah County who are Democrats, lifelong Democrats who have recently changed parties to the Republican Party, and they live in the heart of the city and they cannot find anybody who voted for the people that got elected. Zero. And so Democrats are really questioning our system right now as well, and I'm capitalizing on that. With NVBM, I mean, we're bringing them into NVBM. It's a nonpartisan group, and so I got Democrats throughout Multnomah County grabbing signatures right now to get that on the ballot.
That concludes my questions for Section 1, your executive experience. So I'd like to hand it over to our referee, Chair Danny Johnson, for any questions that he might have.
Yes, Ben, thank you for being on the program today.
Thanks, Rob.
We're coming from Portland, and I used to have an office in downtown Portland, and I see a lot of the things that you're saying. What must a conservative candidate do to enter into the metro area and truly convince people that all the problems that they're experiencing, the unhappiness, the disgust with what goes on the streets and the crime, what must a conservative candidate do to get that message across as far as solutions?
Look, I think that I've been doing this for 5 years in the Portland metro area, okay? I've been telling the truth. No matter who it pissed off, no matter who it hurt, you find the truth and you tell it. And sometimes the truth can evolve because you have new information comes out. But for the most part, man, I've been on point with everything that I've said, and I've gotten a lot of attention because I was bold enough to say it. But not only have I gotten attention, but we've woken up our moderate leftists, are moderate Democrats, which the majority of people in Portland are moderate Democrats. They're not it's not all Antifa. And so most people, and I have friends, I have friends that are Democrats, like really staunch Democrats in my life that have come to me and said, oh my God, Ben, save Portland. We hope you get elected. But a year prior, they're like, you're out of your mind. What are you talking about? You're a conspiracy theorist. And so I've watched this change, and these are educated, high-earning people in my life that have been in my life for decades, and I've watched them wake up in the last 3 years. If they're waking up, they're all waking up. And that's why I really question the election system. And I think that's where we fight as a party. I think we need to take all of our resources and aim it, not all, but the majority of our resources and aim it at our election systems and attack it where it is, like a Ulysses S. Grant strategy. Go to the enemy where the enemy is. That's their most vulnerable place that we can attack the politicians. And it also leaves out the Democrats. Democrats are bleeding heart liberals. Their brains are wired so different than ours. Our brains are wired so different than theirs. I was raised by them. In 1996, the first year I could vote, when I turned 18, I registered as a Republican. And my family's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't like authority. I don't trust authority. And I believe in our rights. And we just have different wires. And we can't let those wiring, the difference in our wiring, stop us from telling the truth. The truth is that our state politics is absolutely abhorrently corrupt, and they're starting to see it now. People are starting to see it.
Thank you. It seems like today in politics, when people get into office, The failed programs and that seem to just continue and continue. And the panacea for everything is give us more money. So, other than more tax money, uh, I hear that you say get more involved with the departments of the state government in that, and get more of a private sector approach to it, such as what's happening on a federal basis right now. What what solution or how would you do that here in Oregon?
How would I? Well, first off, the programs that we have in our state of throwing more tax dollars at every problem is working brilliantly. It's the most effective thing the Democrat Party has ever done. They're taking money from the working class and they're giving it to themselves in the political class. That's all it is. This got nothing to do with solving any problems other than the fact that they're not rich enough and not powerful enough. So that's all that's happening. Okay, if you look at it for what it is, that's what it is. Okay. The other piece of your question, is I think you're asking how do we really go about taking these positions where we can control boards of government agencies. Is that what you were asking?
Well, I'm wondering if where the ORP stands as far as influence, and that with the Republican caucus or the state government legislature. Right now, it seems like there's a division between the Republican caucus within the state house, the ORP, and then there's a lot of independent activities going on by Republicans that seem to be more focused on individual ideas and programs that are many times self-serving, more than for the benefit of Oregon taxpayers. So I'm just wondering how to get that matrix and that lined up so that it really is productive for Oregonians in general, and how the ORP can really do anything at all.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to look what happened in the last session with the walkouts. Tim Knopp, David Brock Smith, some other guy. They threw away 10 senators. They threw away our 10 most beloved senators that represented almost 2 million Oregonians across the state. They threw them away like trash. They walked back in and made a quorum without making a deal with Rob Wagner, who I ran against in District 19. Why did they do that? Why did they do that? There is a tremendous loss of trust in our Republican caucus. They threw them away. Linthicum, Thatcher, these are people who really, truly represented our party values and represented the people that they served. And they got tossed down the trash. So when Knopp was walking away, he was fine. But the guy that stepped up to take control of it all was David Brock Smith. And so until we get these people, until there's accountability, okay, for what happened and what it looks like now, until there's accountability, the ORP is going to be absolutely worthless. I don't know what to tell you. In terms of taking control of government agencies, what we need to do is we need to have training. We need to have education systems. You know, we go and have these meetings, which I've never been to be honest, which is fine. But I hear about them because I got 30, 40 people in these meetings every time that report to me about it. And there's a lot of time spent on listening to, guys like David Brock Smith, bloviate, and a lot of time focused on bylaws. And what we really need to do is focus on effectiveness, education, get counties to have representatives to share with other counties what they're doing and how it's working. Our sheriffs, how are we getting our sheriffs to go strong? Josephine County Sheriff just came out 2 days ago and said he's going to basically back the state in not enforcing ICE immigration. This is Josephine County. The Republicans of Josephine County are pissed. In fact, the Republicans of Josephine County passed a resolution to make it so that they can primary a Republican. And it goes against Republican ORP bylaws. And I applaud them for it. There's probably 10 or 12 other counties that have done it. I applaud them for it. Every county should do that. The ORP should do that. Because when you have sheriffs that you elected, Republicans elected that sheriff. They didn't elect that sheriff to stand with Tina Kotek. and on immigration policy. So where's the Republican Party? The Josephine County Republicans are ready to go scrap it out, and they're pissed. And I talked to her yesterday, and I said, "What are you going to do about this?" And she said, "Ooh, we got ideas." And so that sheriff down in Josephine County, if you're watching this, they're going to come after you and take you out, man. And I'm going to stand right behind them. And if not, I'll stand right in front of them. Wherever they need me to stand, I'm going to stand. I think it's the most important thing you can do as a leader of an organization is to build culture and to permit success. Do not stand in the way of success and clear the obstacles out of the way. When you're outside the organization, I can get out there and I can clear those obstacles, and I'm capable of doing that. I've proven that I can do that. It's what I do anyways. I just got only individuals. There's no RP yet coming behind me in the wake. And so if we could take all those individuals and the current ORP and put them together, we're gonna double the size of the party, and then we're gonna clear out a lot of obstacles.
Thank you. Working from outside the party or outside the ORP is an issue with a lot of people within the ORP, of course. How are you going to garner the support of ORP delegates to the degree that you'll be able to enforce, or not enforce, but to enact some of the things that you're professing?
Well, yeah. So I work on the outside of the party because the leadership at the top of the party that's been there since I've been in politics, who are connected to the legislative caucus, have done nothing but try to thwart my efforts. And this is proven by what the ORP has said on my social media platforms, because they engage my social media platforms and try to tell people that, and it's always been in opposition. But I have more followers than they do. So I just am trying to figure out why they're opposing me when I got more followers. So I have a whole lot of people that are both inside the system and outside the system that are fighting in politics or taking action and volunteering and contributing their most precious resource, which is their energy and their time, to this fight because they believe in it, just like I've been doing. We believe in it. And I have made absolutely no apologies for or even mince my words about what I'm going to do as leader of the ORP. And I'm doing that because I do not want to be elected chair and then have to not do what I think should be done. I'd rather not be elected so that I can continue to do that work separate and outside of the ORP. When the ORP is ready for me to lead it, I'll lead it. And we're going to find out if the ORP is ready. Are we ready to go full MAGA, as I said the other day on X? Or are we going to continue to play uniparty politics as an Oregon GOP? What are we going to do? Do the PCPs want the power, or do they want the power to go to the legislative and they want to go ask David Brocksmith if they can make him one of his pupils in the Capitol? I don't get my power from David Brocksmith. I don't get my power from any man, and I don't want any PCP to get their power from me. I want the PCPs to find out where they get their power from, and I want to show it to them and let them see it and grab a hold of it if they so wish.
Thank you. So I'll turn this back over to you, Daniel.
Thank you. And Mr. Referee, if with your consent, I'm going to skip forward because we're under some time constraints. So I'm going to skip forward to Section 3 of the Oregon Republican Party going forward, so we can talk about what your plan is specifically. And if we have any time left over, we can circle back to Oregon culture and political history, because I think this is a little more relevant. Section 3 is a little bit more relevant to what our viewers are really interested in. So beginning with the Oregon Republican Party going forward, what is the role of the Oregon Republican Party to you?
I think the role needs to be to get Republicans elected and to be a source for finding standout leaders and paving the way and clearing the obstacles for them to become elected. I think that's purely what it's for. And if we're not doing that, then what are we doing? What are we for?
Please make the best argument you are capable of making about why Oregon needs a Democratic Party.
Well, I'll be honest with you. That's a great question. And I'll be honest with you. Political balance is a great objective. we need balance. And we're not going to have balance without strength on the Republican side. The reason Oregon, Washington, California is so imbalanced is because our Republicans are too shy and they don't want to get in the arena and battle it out. We're not thinking about political moves that we, to create battles we know we can win. We're really just going along to get along in general, and that has to stop. In VBM, I started in VBM with Michaela and with Stephen Jonkis because we know that if we can get in vote by mail on the ballot in 2026, that the Democrats, it's going to be a kitchen table topic. It's going to be potentially a national topic, which we already know it is a national topic, and we'll put the pressure on our current Democrat officials like Tina Kotek and Dan Rayfield and Tobias Reed to prove that our election systems are legit. And we know they won't because they can't. And we know this. And so this is a battleground we need to grab a hold of and go after it. And it's only going to matter to them if it's on the ballot. And they can't stop us from getting it on the ballot. They can affect the outcome of the election, of course. And we know you can't vote your way out of a rigged election system. But that's why the victory here is to get it on the ballot so that we can attack them in the arena and put their backs against the wall and force them to prove that the system is legit. And it's illegal in Oregon to even prove that the system is legit. So it's totally crazy. Our election laws themselves are indisputable evidence that our elections are managed and rigged and the outcomes are determined. And so we need to fight this fight. This is it. This is what the Second Amendment was made for. And like you said, in the civil wars are easier to start than they are to end. We have to be able to win this peacefully and politically, but we're not taking any real strategic actions to end this politically. It's only getting worse and worse and worse. So as a leader of the ORP, I would be selling and pitching constantly for us to rally around this objective and to seize it and to take this ground, because I think it's incredibly fundamental to the future of our state and achieving balance in our state. So why we need a Democrat Party? Because if we didn't have a Democrat Party, we might not have libraries in Fossil. And we do. We got a library in Fossil, and there's nothing really wrong with a library in Fossil. It's good. Some people need it for accessing the internet. My mother-in-law was the mayor there, and she's a Democrat, and she made sure they had a library. Okay, and so I appreciate that kind of stuff. Even though I would say, yeah, maybe we can find a private sector library, but I think Democrat Party's valuable, and Democrats are valuable. I think Democrats look at things differently, and then when we can have strength on both sides and force us to compromise, then we have really some good things and bad things, but we have more balance across our state. And right now, we're not strong enough anywhere in not the Republican caucuses, not the Republican Party. We aren't strong enough to do anything to bring balance to Oregon. And we desperately need it. Everybody desperately needs it.
In your opinion, did the 2016 and 2024 election cycles at the federal level represent realignment elections?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
In your opinion, did the 2016 and 2024 election cycles at the federal level represent realignment elections?
No, it didn't. I think 2020 was absolutely stolen. 100%. There was, I think, 20 million votes that didn't vote this time around. That didn't just happen. Trump's lawsuits in swing states prevented truckloads of ballots from getting counted. Truckloads of invalid ballots from being counted. And in Oregon, Washington, and California, we had truckloads of invalid ballots getting counted. And that's the difference. I don't think anybody wanted Biden. In fact, Kamala Harris was the least. She was polling in the end, the last, dead last in the 2020 Democrat primary. But yet she became the vice president. I don't believe any of this stuff. The data, the election laws, and the outcomes are so questionable and so obvious at the same time that we have a serious election problem in our country. Unfortunately, the Republicans do not have a 3/4 majority to modify the Constitution to prevent vote by mail and to prevent the gateway to election fraud that is occurring in our big blue states on the West Coast. But there is things that can be done, and we hope that we can create a large enough movement on the West Coast to be able to garner Trump's attention. Because again, like I said before, if you're not doing something successfully, no one's going to come in and invest. So I think that we need to be successful with our effort to end vote by mail on the West Coast. And I think that Trump and his team will come in and support us with the firepower that we need.
I'd like to move on due to time constraints to ask some questions about the bylaws and platform of the party you aspire to lead. As I noted to our audience, you were informed before this appearance that you should review the Oregon Republican Party bylaws and platform, as they are supposed to be the clearest expression of the priorities of the party. So concerning the bylaws, what do the Oregon Republican Party bylaws say the Oregon Republican Party's chair's job is?
I don't even know. I haven't really looked at the Republican Party bylaws, but here's what I have looked at some of it, but this is one of my weaker areas. But I'll tell you what the chair's job should be. And if we need to change the bylaws, we can change the bylaws. But the chair's job should be to set the culture. It should be the same job as any other CEO or executive of any organization, to set direction and set culture and rally the people within the organization to focus and to become effective and become more effective. That's the job. So I know there's appointments to make, and we'll look at all that stuff. And I know that whoever is elected vice chair, I'll work really well with. And between that top team, we need to implement directions. The ORP is broken. It's hanging on by a limb. And my hope is to break that limb and rebuild all the way up from the ground up. And so the bylaws aren't that important to me, because we're going to need to change bylaws. I guarantee it. That's going to need to happen.
By whom is the chair elected?
The delegates.
And which delegates, what is that called? What is that body called?
What is that body called?
Yes.
I don't know. The electing body, the electors, the delegates.
Okay. So the State Central Committee is going to be voting on the 22nd of February for the Oregon Republican Party officers, the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, and the treasurer. So how many members, so that's the answer to the question that I was looking for. How many members sit on the executive committee of the Oregon Republican Party, and how are they selected?
To me, this doesn't even matter. It just totally doesn't even matter. Look, all these rules are going to be figured out. Like, I could go read it and figure it out. I understand legislation. I read laws. I understand. Like, this is not something that I'm going to be that even matters right now. When I'm elected, I'll make sure to act within the rules of the party, or I'll change the rules. That I can promise.
How are the rules of the bylaws of the Oregon Republican Party? Are you familiar with how they can be amended? And do you know whether the chair can unilaterally amend them? No,
they got to be amended. My understanding is through the body, through the SEC, and I don't know what type of amendments can be made by requirements of different degrees, in terms of like a 50% majority, 51% majority, or a super majority. I don't really know. However, all those things will be found out.
I'd like to ask some questions now about the Oregon Republican Party platform. So first question is, why does the Oregon Republican Party have a platform?
Why does it have a platform?
Yes, sir.
That the platform is its value system and what it's looking to achieve politically. Correct?
I'm the one asking the questions, and you're the one giving the answers. At 18 single-space pages and 6,335 words, do you think the Oregon Republican Party platform should be expanded, contracted, or left exactly the same?
I think it needs to be contracted. I'm looking at the platform right now. I've read through the platform, and a lot of it is it doesn't have the biggest problem that the ORP has is it doesn't even affect change to achieve its platform. So it's a lot of just sitting out, behind the battlefield, and away from where the action is, and determining details about, what it stands for, but it doesn't stand yet. And so my objective is to get the place standing up and in the battlefield on the front lines. Again, I'm not a detail-oriented person, and I have, again, too many details in my brain across the board. So when it's time, if I'm elected, I'll go through these bylaws and I'll understand every single one of them, or I'll work with my team who does understand these bylaws, and I'll make sure that these are utilized very effectively to affect the vision that I have for the ORP. That's what you want in a CEO. You don't want a CEO who's a detail-oriented individual. I'm not a detail-oriented individual. One of the ways that we fix the Umpqua Public Transportation District is by getting the right people in the right seats. And so, like I said, I'm not the social club. I'm not focused on bylaws. Platform is really important, though. I think we should have a very simple platform, and we should be able to be effective enough to move the dial toward the platform. But that's the biggest issue that we're facing right now as a party.
In section 1, where we started, you compared yourself to Elon Musk. Do you believe that Elon Musk is not a detail-oriented person?
I do believe he is not a detail-oriented person, yes.
Section 11 of the Oregon Republican Party platform is titled Individual Liberty and Limited Government.
Can I stop you for a second? I did not compare myself to Elon Musk. Okay? I was not. I only compared to the work that he's doing through Doge to the work that we're doing through our own government agency that we're responsible for. But I didn't say like, oh, me and Elon, we're the same. Believe me, Elon Musk is a total genius. But yeah, he's not a detail-oriented guy. I'll guarantee you that.
Okay. Section 11 of the Oregon Republican Party platform is titled Individual Liberty and Limited Government. And Section 11.3 states, quote, "We advocate limiting the scope and jurisdiction of the federal and state government, addressing abuses in commerce and the general welfare clauses," close quote. However, Section 9, healthcare, contains Section 9.4, which states, quote, we are pro-life. Therefore, we support the sanctity of life from conception to natural death and are opposed to abortion and physician-assisted suicide. We promote pursuing full disclosure of all known risks and complications of abortion, surgically and chemically, and the organ harvesting and eugenic practices of the abortion industry," close quote. Do you see any tension between these two sections?
You lost me, man. Whatever it was you were reading, I don't know. You lost me.
If I may paraphrase,
since
our viewers have heard it.
Please.
Section 11.3 of the Oregon Republican Party platform advocates the limiting of the scope and jurisdiction of the federal and state government. Section 9.4 of the Oregon Republican Party platform takes a very unambiguous pro-life position. Do you see any tension between those two planks of the platform?
I don't understand what you're saying. I'm very sorry, but I just, okay. What are you asking me? Please just ask a question.
If the state of Oregon was to outlaw abortion in accordance with the position of the Oregon Republican Party, would that constitute, from your perspective, would that constitute a limiting of the scope and jurisdiction of the state government?
I guess I just don't understand your question. Does it limit the scope of the state government? I don't know what you're talking about.
The platform attempts to articulate the positions of the Oregon Republican Party, as we talked about before. So if on the one hand, the platform advocates for limiting the scope of the state government, and on the other hand, the platform also advocates outlawing abortion, how exactly are those two planks reconciled?
Okay, no, that makes sense. No, I get. Okay, thank you. There's too many words. I lose focus. I don't know. I can't. Anyway, yeah. So, I look. Abortion needs to be reeled in. Okay, if this is an abortion question, we got to reel it in. We can't have babies getting aborted the day before birth. That's evil. 100% evil. We just need to bring it back. We just need to push that dial. More than anything, we need to push this dial backward to where this isn't happening in the second and third trimester. We can't have this. This is just pure evil. I really love what the federal government did, ruling against Roe v. Wade and putting it back on the states, and that should be a state issue. Right now, it's a state. It's codified in Oregon's constitution. So the only way that we're going to fix it is we're going to have to either run an initiative petition once we know we have vote by mail eradicated and we have legitimate, reliable election results, or we need to get supermajorities in our House and Senate. And before anything that's pertaining to what I would do right now in the next year or 2 years or whatever would be focused on achieving that first. Then once you achieve certain things, then you can look at, what you do next. But that's so far down the road for Oregon that it's like we're not in any position whatsoever to affect anything. We can't even reduce taxes. We don't have the power to do that. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you other than that. We got a lot of work to do before we can start working on real issues that matter. We got to fix our elections.
So if I understood your answer correctly, the breadth of Plank 9.4, Section 9.4 of the Oregon Republican Party platform, which appears to oppose abortion under all circumstances, you would advocate amending that plank to address only abortions in the second and third trimesters, or am I not understanding your answer?
I did not say that. I did not say that. That's so funny. You said that. I did not say that. I'm just
trying to understand your answer because it appears to be inconsistent with Plank 9.4 of the party platform that you were aspiring to serve.
Like I said before, I wouldn't even focus on any of this stuff. We need to become effective, and it's not effective to sit in a room and argue about planks on the platform when we have zero power as a party, okay? So that's what I'm advocating for. We should have a pro-life stance because that's morally correct, and it's also morally correct to allow people to make their own choices and see God in their own way, and when they and let God handle those people. I'm personally pro-choice, pro-life 100%. But I'm not God, and I'm not going to play God. And so I think you can have both of those planks listed in our platform and actually not have conflict. But the silly thing is to argue about this when we have no power.
Answering these questions, we have several areas that we need to still get through.
Sure.
In 2018, Oregonians voted on Measure 106 concerning public funding of abortions. By 2-1, Oregonians rejected Section 9.4 of the Oregon Republican Party platform. Do political parties that embrace unpopular policies tend to do well electorally?
Well, I don't believe we had legitimate elections in 2018. In fact, I guarantee you we didn't. And so I do believe, however, that in 2018, a lot of Democrats would believe that it was the right thing to do to pay for to make taxpayers pay for abortions. I personally believe that is absolutely even more evil than abortion itself, to make someone else who disagrees with it to actually pay for it and participate in the process. It's really hard to tell which is worse. And so that absolutely is disgusting as much as it is to go have an abortion because you're not feeling like being a parent today.
Some derivation of the word transparency appears 5 times in the Oregon Republican Party platform, including the following statement in Section 15, Government Integrity. Quote, "The Oregon Republican Party believes in limited, responsible, and transparent government at all levels is essential." Close quote. In light of the priority which the Oregon Republican Party places on transparency, would you support broadcasting Oregon Republican Party meetings as chair?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I think that. I don't know. I would put that to the delegates and say, "What do you guys want?" Or the PCPs, "What do you guys want?" I think there's a value in not giving your battle plans to your enemy too soon, and I think there's also value at broadcasting our meetings. But transparency really is about what's really going on and who the people are who are in charge, who are leading. That's the people who are in charge of the PCPs. That needs to happen. That's not the case right now. But the people who are leading and representing, they need to have transparency about who they are, what their motives are. That's what's the most important thing to me.
So I'm going to ask you some questions concerning election integrity because you've leaned pretty heavily into that in your responses today. First question I have for you is in 2016, Oregon Republican Dennis Richardson won statewide. How did Dennis Richardson win statewide if votes aren't being counted correctly?
Do you talk about Dennis Richardson?
In 2016, Dennis Richardson was elected as the Oregon Secretary of State, our number 2 constitutional official.
He also supported, but hold on, Dennis Richardson was not elected to Senate prior to that, and he used to not be supportive of vote by mail. He was anti-vote by mail. Then he was elected when he changed his position and he became supportive of vote by mail. He was elected Secretary of State. I think it's really important people understand that.
Well, okay, just to clarify, in 2014, Dennis Richardson ran for governor of Oregon against John Kitzhaber and lost. Then he ran again in 2016. He actually never served in either the Oregon Senate or the United States.
I got Gordon Smith mixed up. That was Gordon Smith. My bad. Yep. But Dennis Richardson was a supporter of vote by mail. But prior to that, the Republicans were anti-vote by mail going all the way through into the 90s.
So is it your contention that Dennis Richardson was elected Secretary of State of Oregon fraudulently?
Possibly.
Oregon Republicans,
possibly, 100%.
Oregon Republicans have leaned pretty heavily into allegations of electoral fraud to explain going 1 in 33, and that was just the last time I counted, which I believe was in 2020. We've lost several more races.
You said what now? It's hard for me to track you sometimes.
So Oregon Republicans have leaned pretty heavily into allegations of electoral fraud to explain going 1 and 33 in statewide elections since 1990. Not for United States Senate, just statewide elections. And that was just from 1990 to 2020. Section 2 of the Oregon Republican Party platform is on, quote, election integrity, close quote, and it has 17 subsections. In your own words, why is election integrity important?
If we look, the whole West Coast has the same exact election legislative infrastructure with our laws. Okay, we got the same system. Oregon, Washington, California. But Oregon was the first. Oregon developed it and it spread. We have an election system where all you need to prove it is to look at the laws. it's an all things go. For example, we have legislation like the 2381 House Bill 23. It says you can receive ballots 7 days after Election Day. If it's postmarked by Election Day, but if ballots received that are not postmarked by Election Day, if they arrive within that 7-day time frame, are assumed to be have been mailed by Election Day. It's absolutely insane. These are what our election laws look like. It's actually against the ORS for any third party to audit any elections in the state of Oregon. They can't do a full audit. There hasn't been a full audit of any race in the state of Oregon in over a decade. They do 10% spot checks. I've been involved personally in cases like Washington County v. Sipple, in which in 2022, the entire Democrat Party across the nation, including Biden himself, was saying that these the tabulators weren't connected to the internet. However, in Washington County v. Sipple, the Oregon DOJ agreed that each tabulator puts out its own Wi-Fi signal. So you can sit in the parking lot from your laptop and you can log in to its own Wi-Fi signal. You can actually change the dots on the scanned ballots. And they've done things like limit how long ballots can be kept. It's like a year and a half now. It's not even 10 years. Like I got to keep an employee file for like 15 years in the public transportation district, but yet ballots, you got to throw those out in a year and a half. So I mean, it's pretty wild. Okay, we have a system where they've continually increased the size of precincts to make it harder and harder to actually track where ballots are coming from and centralize the counting throughout entire counties. And that data we're in a box canyon, man. You can't even confirm that our elections are legit. They can't even prove that our elections are legit. There's no proof at all that they're legit. And so looking at the laws themselves, I have no doubt in my mind that our elections are completely rigged. And if you go to nvbm.com/FAQ, you can see the history of vote by mail right then and there. And it's clear as day what the intention was when you look at it on a map. Like when you map it out, it's very clear.
Yeah. Thank you. Section 2.1 of the Oregon Republican Party platform begins with, quote, "We support the elimination of mail-in voting and computerized tabulation of votes. Given the fact that vote by mail was voted in by Oregon voters via ballot measure 60 in 1998 by a margin of 69.4% to 30.6%, what is your plan to repeal it?"
Well, NVBM is a constitutional amendment that makes it illegal. And so that's one way to do it. But we're not going to be able. What's that?
And are you saying that it's a constitutional amendment for the federal constitution or for
No,
the
it's a
Oregon?
state constitutional
Okay.
initiative petition to make vote by mail illegal.
So
And so we know we can't vote our way out of a rigged system. So getting it on the ballot is the next big accomplishment that we can make, right? So if we get on the ballot, then we can start to wake people up and wake Oregonians up to the election system. And we've already done that with Democrats in the Portland metro area that are signing up and signing this thing. They want to see it on the ballot.
okay, so your strategy is that not necessarily to change it in the first go around, but to put it onto the ballot so that the something that passed by 2-1 in 1998 is going to be our people are going to change their minds then?
Yeah. So what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? What else do we have? We're going to sit here and just continue to go vote? Or are we going to do something about it? So if we get it on the ballot, we bring attention to it. If we get a lot of signatures, we can find out the difference between the number of signatures and the voters. If we get a large amount of people signing up to it, then we're going to be able to show the Trump administration and the nation that there's a big movement to end vote by mail on the West Coast. And if there's a big movement, it's going to be in the media, and we're going to force that pressure alone will force our own elected Democrats in our executive branch to defend it. And they can't defend it. It's indefensible. The election laws themselves lay it out.
Okay. Is it possible that unpopular policies might have also played a role in Oregon Republicans' 40-year losing streak?
I don't think our policies are unpopular. I think our policies are absolute dynamite across the country. And the big anomaly here is why on the West Coast is our platform not popular, especially considering that the people on the West Coast are getting shafted harder than anyone in the country besides New Yorkers. I mean, it's bad here. The taxation without representation is bad here. The crime is bad here. The education is absolutely abysmal. 60% of our kids can't read.
Mr. Edtl, so we're talking about election integrity right now. So I'd like to keep our focus on that.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about election integrity. If you think that our platform doesn't work on the West Coast, you're crazy, because our platform on the West Coast, the people on the West Coast are paying the price, the worst of anyone in the country, across the board on every issue. And the only thing that it just speaks to the fact that it's not our platform, it's the elections.
Okay. Is it possible that shouting voter fraud as a catch-all explanation for Oregon Republican Party's statewide underperformance might actually be contributing to Oregon Republican Party electoral underperformance?
No. Look, voter fraud, massive.
No is perfectly adequate. We've got a lot of questions.
Massive election fraud is the fundamental core problem on the West Coast. Until we attack it full on, Republicans will continue to lose no matter what the consequences.
What risk, if any, do you see if the leader of the Oregon Republican Party claims that 40% of Oregon voters or more have been denied the civil right of voting for the candidate of their choice?
Say it again.
What risk, if any, do you see if the leader of the Oregon Republican Party claims that 40% or more of Oregon voters have been denied the civil right of voting for the candidate of their choice?
I actually fear what would happen if the next leader of the Oregon GOP doesn't make that the primary issue, because it is the primary issue, and the Trump administration and the Republicans nationwide knew it. That's why they filed so many lawsuits going into this election in every single swing state, including California, which they forced millions of ballots that were, or millions of voter registrations to be deleted. And we're starting that process right now in Oregon through Judicial Watch, and my co-chief sponsor, Stephen Jonkis, is their counsel. We have a process. We have to attack this. This is what gave California the biggest increase in Republican voters in the last 40 years. It wasn't the increase in Republican voters. It was the deletion of millions of fake registered voters that don't exist. So this is the number one issue. We need to make this the loudest thing that we do. And we need to uncover this fraud and end it, because I'll tell you right now, once you understand the legal structure of our election systems, you will have no doubt that our elections are determined by the current government that's in power.
Yeah.
The uniparty.
Have you been this movement that you have been involved in? Have you been able to be successful in either Oregon courts or in federal courts? Have you prevailed in any litigation?
Yeah, Mooney v. Brown, OHA would have prevailed, but it was considered moot by the state Supreme Court prior to going into the Supreme Court because the mandates were dropped. We had our successful lawsuits in federal court against companies like Best Buy and Goodwill Industries, where we ended up getting settlements. And those corporations pushed back and said, we're not going to enforce it anymore. And so that's where we attacked. We attacked the government itself, and we also attacked the government enforcers through the 14th Amendment and through ADA. And so we actually ran a plethora. We had like 6 or 7 lawsuits just on masks and vaccines at the same time, which ultimately we prevailed because of those lawsuits and settlements.
So
once the enforcers went away, state had nowhere to enforce.
Mr. Edtl, have you succeeded in any litigation at the state
yes, the answer is yes.
level in election integrity? You were referring to Goodwill, you were referring to Best Buy. Those are not governmental agencies, as we all know.
Yes.
So have you actually prevailed?
But we did sue OHA and Brown, and I think that would have won. That was through Tyler Smith. I think that would have won, but it was declared moot because they dropped the mask mandates like 2 weeks before going to Supreme Court.
Those were for mask mandates. What I'm asking you is, have you been successful in either a state court or a federal court in addressing any concerns you have about
we have Washington County v. Sippel going to the state Supreme Court, which was all appointed by Democrat governors going back prior to even all after vote by mail. And so we don't think we're going to get a fair shake in the Oregon Supreme Court on this election issue. The other thing is federal election law. We've gone all the way to the Supreme Court with our cases, with multiple cases, and they've all been either dropped by the Supreme Court or we've lost all the way through. Okay. So did Trump because of lack of standing. And standing is what your jurisdictional right or legal jurisdiction is for suing. Election law right now is on the states. We do have a lawsuit right now that's going in, that's put on by Judicial Watch to clean the voter rolls, and that has a chance of success, as we've seen a success in California. So we're hoping that plays out, but this is not an easy battle. Has the ORP spent 1 penny on a lawsuit? No.
After the 2020 election, the Oregon Republican Party passed a resolution denouncing the incident of January 6th as a, quote, false flag operation, close quote. Were you a part of Oregon Republican Party leadership at that time?
No, I was not. That was 2020. I was brand new, but I started Free Oregon, and I'll tell you about January 6th. I was
yes,
in tears.
Let's we're running very short on time, and I don't want to hold you over. You've got something that is frankly far more important that I don't want you to be late for.
No, it's good.
So just a quick couple of more questions. Okay. Do you agree or disagree with the resolution that was passed?
What resolution?
The one denouncing January 6th as a, quote, false flag operation.
January 6th was denouncing a false flag. I don't understand what that means.
So the Oregon Republican Party in 2020 passed a resolution denouncing the January 6th incident as a, quote, false flag operation, close quote. Do you disagree or agree with that resolution?
Are you saying that the resolution was denouncing that it was a false flag or denouncing it as a false flag? I'm just trying to...
Denouncing it as a false flag operation.
Oh, I guess I just don't understand what you mean. I think January 6th was absolutely... I watched it live. People were... The only people that were killed were our people, were citizens. A bunch of lies and BS came out of that.
Okay. Mr. Trump seems to be about as popular in Oregon as Mr. Biden was popular in Idaho. Does Mr. Trump's approach to governance resonate in Oregon?
You said Mr. Trump's governance resonates in Oregon?
Does it? Do you believe it resonates in Oregon?
I do believe it does, yeah.
Okay. In what way?
Well, I think people are going to see, I think people are seeing the changes, and I think it resonates. It resonates with a lot of people, even with the Democrats I talked to are like, no, go Trump. I know a lot of Democrats that are fully in support of what's happening right now.
Okay. Conversely, when your political party, when any political party wins at the federal level, it is customary that some state level talent is steered towards political jobs in the victorious administration. Given the fact that there are about 4,000 appointed positions that are appointed by the president and the people whom he overwatches, and that Oregon is 1.15% of the national population, that should mean about 43 jobs would ordinarily go to Oregonians within the administration, appointed jobs. Oregon, both with Democratic administrations and Republican administrations, Oregon has traditionally grossly underperformed those numbers. What is your plan to place as many Oregonians in positions at the federal level in order to build the talent base of Oregon Republicanism?
Honestly, I've never thought of that once. I literally am just focusing on state party and its relevance. I think before we can place anybody in the federal government and the Trump's administration, we ought to be a relevant party with this respected across the country. Right now, we're not. So again, it's cart before the horse to me. Like I said before, I'm a one day at a time guy.
And you are aware of the fact that it is the state political parties which customarily are the executive agents for the federal government in terms of placing persons in federal administrations.
Okay.
Are you aware of that?
I mean, I wasn't, but now I am.
Okay. That we are at 2:33 in the afternoon right now. I know that you've given us a little bit of extra time, and I very much appreciate that. I'm very, very sorry that we haven't been able to get through section 2, but I would like to turn over the floor to Chair Johnson to ask any questions that he might have as a follow-up, and then you could stay as long as you want, but if you need to check out, then we are certainly understand that.
No, we can keep going a little bit. I got some time. I want to make sure if you guys still want to keep going, we can. It is a very long interview.
Chair Johnson, the floor is yours.
Oh, you're muted.
Chair Johnson, you can unmute yourself at any time.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Ben, I appreciate your convictions and whatnot in regard to voter validity. My one question in regard to that is so many people within Oregon find it so doggone convenient to vote by mail, and they don't have to take off work. They can do it around their kitchen table. They can talk to their families and that. They don't have to get in the car and go to a precinct to vote. How do we get that electorate to understand the importance of voting in our quote unquote old-fashioned way?
Well, you just compare it to the convenience of stepping over a drug addict as he shot himself up and passed out right there on the sidewalk and shit himself. And when you step over that, or when they do it, they defecate in front of your business doors in downtown. You just compare that convenience to the vote by mail convenience, and I think you got a winning argument. 40 of the 60 House districts are in the Portland metro area. All right. And that means that 40 of the 60 House districts, the voters in those 40 districts, are stepping over people, or getting mugged or robbed, or listening to gunshots in the background that aren't in a range. And so you kind of go, what's more convenient? Do you want to pay when you get 60% of your money taken out of taxes, or you get the preschool tax or the homeless tax bill as a small business owner in Portland, that you got to stroke a check for 30 grand a year? Which I have to do. You start to go, wait a minute here, this isn't so convenient. Look, before we had vote by mail, what we had is we had educated voters who cared, who went to vote at the polls. And educated voters who care, whether they're Democrat or Republican or otherwise, are the people we want to vote. We don't want ballots, literally millions of ballots and hundreds of thousands of ballots that aren't going to anybody in particular, sitting around at USPS warehouses or at the company in Bend that prints them up, or at a university where the SEIU pulls 150,000 second ballots every single election cycle, and they collect them for ballot drives. I don't know why, but they need the 150,000 ballots, I guess. We don't need that. We don't need the ERIC system that takes the signatures from the dead people and then who are currently registered to vote, hundreds of thousands of them, and then can match those signatures verified at the county clerk's office, because they do exactly match, because they're digital images. And so we don't need that convenience, because that convenience is what costs us our money, our kids, our lives, our businesses, our neighborhoods, our communities. What we're seeing right now in Oregon is a massive income redistribution from the working class to the political class because they've stolen our elections, and that's what they're doing, is they're taking our money.
Thank you. One of the things out here in Eastern Oregon that we're always concerned about is being overloaded with votes from the west side of Oregon. We have certain values and interests in that here that we feel are highly compatible with society across the board. Uh, that may not be the case in the Portland metro area or some others, but what is the what are the issues that we hold dear here in Eastern Oregon that can resonate in Western Oregon? And if it does resonate, what should we do to get that message across? And how could the ORP be a part of that mechanism?
Well, I think that the selection of the ORP leader really has to be about selecting someone who's an executive, who's a CEO, who can represent the organization in the media, and it's got to be someone that the media is interested in talking to. And so that's what I bring as the leader of the Oregon GOP. I bring that. And I'll tell you, my wife is from Fossil, Oregon, Wheeler County. So we got land there. Her family are beef ranchers. Here's an example. People in the city like to eat. We like to eat steak. Where does that steak come from? It comes from Eastern Oregon, especially the good stuff. But we all rely on each other in various ways, and we have to be able to understand that. Look, Republicans have this live and let live mentality, which is really good. That's what I have. Hey, you be you, I'm gonna be me. We're good. But we all got to eat food. And the agriculture has been destroyed, and our logging and our lumber industries have been destroyed, not because we're protecting spotted owls. It's because we're breaking the bank of Democrat opposition, which lives in Eastern Oregon and Southern Oregon. When you prohibit agriculture and you prohibit logging and the mining of natural resources, you're breaking your political opponents from the Democrat perspective. That's why Democrats have done all this stuff to you guys. And so as a city guy, I can tell you that I'm watching it happen. We need to bolster our energy resources. We need to bolster our agricultural resources. And I think the tariffs that Trump's implementing are going to force us back to being self-sufficient, which is what a state should be. We got dense population districts, of course we do, but those dense population districts will literally starve to death if we don't get the food, and we don't get water, we don't get power, we don't get energy, we don't get wood to build our properties and our buildings. So we've just been divided around all this superficial stuff. And the end result is that the Republican Party goes broke, the Democrats get rich, and when they've taken all the natural resource money away, now they start taking taxpayer dollars and giving it to their own NGOs. And that's the redistribution of wealth that we're experiencing. That's pure communism. It's pure communism. And so we have to stop that. And once we eradicate the communist elements of our government, I think you're going to find that there's a lot of synergy between the rural and urban people across the state. And just the fact that there's an urban person running for chair is a good thing, because especially with someone like me that has connections, deep-rooted connections into the agricultural community, as my family are ranchers. And so I don't know, I think it's a good thing. I can talk to both crowds and I can listen to both crowds. But the truth is, you got to kill the communism around here. That's step one. Communism is supported by vote by mail. Hate to break the bad news.
Daniel?
Thank you so much, Chair Johnson. So now, bonus round, we're going to return to section 2. And you let us know whenever you're done, whenever you need to depart from us. But we want to get in as much as possible and give you as much of a chance as possible to make your case to all Oregonians, but particularly members of the State Central Committee. In 2008, Nate Silver published an analysis of Oregon political affiliation in which he found that Oregon Republicans are the most conservative Republicans in the nation, and Oregon Democrats are the most liberal in the nation. What implications, if any, do you believe this has for the future of Oregon?
I think therein lies a major Yeah, that's a great point. Look, the further what the government goes to one side, the further the people are going to have to pull and push away. Like, we are polarized here, and we've got to end the polarization through truth and corruption, and exposing the corruption in our government is, I think, what's going to really unite Oregonians, regardless of their political beliefs. Corruption is something we can all get behind to put an end to. And the greatest corruption, the greatest fraud that's occurring in this state is our election systems. And so there's no denying it. The old way of calling you an election denier or saying that, well, show me the proof. The proof is in the laws themselves. And so we have legislators, and we have lawmakers, and we have executive branch representatives and everybody else. They need to prove how these laws secure our elections. They don't. They don't secure. They make our elections insecure. We need to secure up our elections before we really focus on anything else. And I think we can unite people around it, because especially with what just happened in 2024 across the country.
And I think I can guess what the answer to this question is going to be, but it's the next question in order, and it follows very nicely behind your answer that you just gave. Do you believe that Oregon is experiencing a crisis in public trust? And if so, why?
There's a huge crisis in public trust, because the public has been footing the bill for the homeless issue, the education, all these major failures, law enforcement, healthcare. Every single thing that we have in Oregon is ranked last in the country. I mean, just about everything is in the low 5, low 10s, everything. So we're not doing anything right. Even our environmental policy or energy policies are just bad. It's all bad, but we're paying more and more and more and more and more for it directly to the government. And not only that, but the government apparatus that controls PGE and all these other things. When the government sues the natural gas companies because of climate change, then the gas companies turn around and double their expenses. You're like, this has to be orchestrated. This can't be. It just cannot be. They can't be this stupid, and they're not this stupid. What they're doing is they're grifting off the taxpayers, and the money is going into pockets, and we have to. I think everybody is really waking up at an impressive rate in discovering that our government is not of for and by the people, but it is actually working towards the enslavement of the people. And I don't think Democrats that are independent thinkers, which there's a lot of them, are gonna not believe that very much longer. I think people are really starting to see the massive scale of the theft that's occurring in Oregon.
In what way, if any, have Oregon Republicans and the Oregon Republican Party contributed to our current crisis in public trust, in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, I think when you have Republican leaders that you elect, they should vote and champion the Republican platform. And what we see in Oregon is we see the Republicans who do the opposite move up in the power chain. And the Republicans that do champion are like Edtl or Dwayne Yunker, just a bunch of them. And then prior to the walkout, we had a whole bunch that were doing it. They get sort of pushed aside. They're not really getting support and attention from the caucus. They're more or less on the outside of the caucus, and I think that erodes trust tremendously. When we all look up and we see Donald Trump sign executive orders like we've seen in the last month, everyone's like, he's doing what he said he was going to do, right? He's told us this, and now he's doing it. This is amazing. And even the Democrats, they can't really complain because he's doing what he said he was going to do. And so instead of what we got with Biden, which was a bunch of blah, 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 and then all of a sudden it's like, we're going to open the borders. Like, did you run on open borders? I don't think you did. So we've got this new school of politics coming out of the Trump administration and led by Trump, who's not a politician, who's not playing politics. He's playing for our country. He's playing for the people that elected him. And we got these Biden-era politicians who are playing the game and telling us one thing and doing another. And I think until we stop telling us one thing and doing another, there's not going to be any trust in this state.
Which former Oregon Republican Party chair over the past 25 years was your favorite, and why?
I mean, for me, I was not paying close attention until 2020, but I really appreciated Dallas Hurd. I appreciated Dallas Hurd standing up and pulling his mask off in the during legislative session in 2020. And I know that he was an ORP chairman. There's other heroes that I have in Oregon, but I really didn't follow politics until 2020. I was involved in it a little bit in my early 20s. I was in the Multnomah County Young Republicans and the Multnomah County PCP, but I stopped participating after the Patriot Act, and so I didn't like the Patriot Act, and I didn't understand why Republicans were supporting it. I felt like it was going to be used against us someday, and I found it to be very hard right or hard left. Now it's hard left because they use that to investigate people like me. I've been investigated by the FBI because of what I've said about the Tiger Tualatin School District, and so I know I'm on that list, and that's because of the Patriot Act. And so I was against that, and I left the party because I didn't feel like it was. I felt like it was weird. It was terrible, and I watched the Kool-Aid people doing all the Kool-Aid stuff, and I jumped out, but didn't really pay much attention until 2020. So I would have to say Dallas Hurd. I wish he would have stayed in, but I also don't think that any elected official should be able to hold their job as the chair, or at least on the executive committee, because I think there's a conflict of interest. I think if I were elected, let's say I run for governor and I'm elected chair and I run for governor, if I were to become governor, I would want the ORP to hold me accountable. I would want that to be severed, or any position, legislature, anything. I'd want that to be severed, because the job of the ORP is to hold elected officials accountable. You want them to be there. And I think that's really critical.
Which former Oregon Republican Party chair over the past 25 years was your least favorite, and why?
Well, I got to say, I mean, I've tracked Justin's work as ORP chair, and it looks like it's just further down the drain, and so I only have like a 5-year window to really look at it, and so. Looking at that, I got a 5-year window. I'd have to say he's probably the least effective chair that we've had that I've been able to witness. At least Dallas Hurd got attention. He made the ORP relevant.
If you are elected, so many people who get involved in political party work, and particularly run for chairs of political parties, the criticism that has been leveled against many of them is that they see this position as a stepping stone to something quote unquote more important. If you are elected as the Oregon Republican Party chair, do you intend to use this as a stepping stone to some other political office, or is this going to be the culminating responsibility of your career?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I do agree with you. I think this is often used as a stepping stone, but I don't need to be chair. I already have attention. I already have influence. I don't really need to be chair. It's not something that I really even desire to be. What I desire is a strong Oregon Republican Party, and the Oregon Republican Party that needs to be turned around and moved in the right direction so that it accurately represents and inspires its members. And right now, that party doesn't do that, and I think it's really important that the ORP be freed from the thumb of the legislative caucus leaders, and separated. And I want to see those two things accomplished. Whether that can get accomplished if I'm not chair, I don't know. I believe everyone running right now for chair is going to maintain that the ass kissing of the people who control the Republican caucus. I would end that immediately. That's the difference between us. I think everything's a stepping stone, but I don't think I need to step from a broken organization that's totally ineffective into something more interesting. I have a deep desire to fix it and to fix our state. And if it so happens that I'm elected to this position, I will not change a thing. I will continue to do the work that I've been doing, and I'm making it very, very clear that's you don't elect me if you don't want me to keep doing what I'm doing, because either the state party's ready for me or it's not. And either way, I'm okay with the outcome. I don't need it, so it's not something I need to have.
And calling back to an earlier question that we had asked about, when did Oregon, to your knowledge, when did Oregon enter the union?
I don't remember. 1940. No, sorry, 1859.
59. So, and we'd
59.
ask you
That's
about
right.
that.
I'm trying to memorize the Oregon
Yeah.
flag.
And that's just to set up the next question.
You just like to go, hey, I want the most least studious, least academic guy I can get. I'm going to ask him all these academic questions to make him look stupid. I know what you're up to. I'm not an academic. I don't remember
that's
things
exactly
that don't
what
matter.
we're not trying to do here. From April 12th of 1861 to May 26th of 1865, what nationally significant event occurred?
Say it again.
From 1861 to 1865, what nationally significant event occurred?
Civil War?
And what was the Civil War about?
It was about money, just like every other Civil War.
Okay. What party was formed to abolish slavery?
The Republican Party.
And who was the Republican Party's first president?
Abraham Lincoln. Honest Abe.
Why was Oregon's entry into the Union on the eve of the Civil War significant, in your opinion, if it was at all?
Well, I don't know. I don't, that to me, I'm no historian. Okay. But I do love Abe Lincoln and I do love the Civil War. So I study it because it's interesting to me. Why Oregon became a state likely to join the North is my guess. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was to join the South. I don't know. I can't remember. Either way, I'm glad the North won.
What is the idea of Oregon to you?
The idea of Oregon. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know what that means.
Do you believe that Oregon has something unique to contribute to the rest of the country, our culture?
Our culture's pretty rotten. It's pretty bad. We're contributing a lot of clickbait for the rest of the nation. I'll tell you that. Right now, we're probably the biggest exporter of clickbait in the whole country. No, I think that we have
underneath that, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I think I might have stated my question inartfully. Underneath Oregon politics is culture. And it's often said that politics is downstream from culture. Do you believe that Oregon culture has anything unique to offer to the rest of our country? And if so, what do you believe that value system is and how can it help the United States of America move forward?
I think that I've heard that before, where politics is downstream of culture. And what's changed in the last, I think, since 2016 and prior with the MAGA movement is that culture's been downstream of politics, and we need to actually shift that. I don't think as humans we have to accept any condition that we have or face. We can change it, but changing that means that we have to have champions willing to go out in the headwind and force that change. And we saw that with Trump. What Oregon can offer politically and culturally is a lesson. It's a lesson. It's a lesson of what happens when people don't participate in the political process. What happens when we allow communists to take control of our government, and communism to take control. And communism isn't something that's not, it's sold to citizens as, oh, this is great, everyone's going to have equal outcomes. It's not true. It's never what it is. Communism, by definition, is all power to the state. And so what has happened is that our Oregonians have been lied to by its leaders that they've elected, or maybe not elected, but over at some point in time have participated in putting there based on lies. And the lie is freedom, and freedom isn't what's happening in Oregon. Freedom and liberty have been taken away and eroded, and I think we can offer the rest of the country a lesson in how to prevent that from happening in the future. But first, in order to do that, we have to defeat what's taking control of what was a great state. I never left the state because I never left Portland because I love Portland. I love liberal cities. I don't know why. I just love them because there's freedom and liberty. And when Portland turned totalitarian, that's when I began to fight back. And I think a lot of people have fought back too. And it is totalitarian. It's really, really bad. So I think we can offer. I think hopefully we can succeed in changing the culture in Oregon through politics, and we can offer that lesson to the rest of the country.
Ben Edtl, you've kindly given us, we've gone 26 minutes over the time that we'd originally planned. So I want to conclude my questioning. I want to hand it over to Chair Johnson. And as soon as he's finished with his questions, I would love to give you an opportunity to make your closing statement. And then that should conclude your appearance on our show today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the hard work you're doing this to get I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks. Chair Johnson, the floor is yours.
Well, I want to thank Ben for this today. I've never met Ben personally. I don't believe his character and stand on issues have been very interesting to me, coming from an Eastern Oregon background, but originally coming from Silverton, Oregon, which is my hometown. I really would like to know, Ben, if you do not get this position, what, if any, position or committee or process would you be interested in carrying the torch for within the ORP? Or would that not be of interest, and would it be more of a independent approach as you are doing now?
Well, I think that's a good question. I don't think that that I really have. I would be in the right seat in the ORP if I wasn't the leader, and I just believe that. And so, if I were not the leader, I would probably not be successful contributor to the situation. So I would remain on the outside, and I would continue work to shape the ORP from the outside, because I think that the leaders, there's one position in every organization of the person who's not in it. They're not in the organization. They're on the outside of the organization. That's the executive, the CEO. That's the one position you hire to work on the outside. At the Umpqua Transportation District, I work on the outside of the business. I hired the right people and brought my team in that I know are very good at compliance and all this stuff. Actually, some really great, amazing people. And I put them on the inside to do. That's what the leader does. And then I get out there and I clear obstacles. Like, I set the direction, and then I'm on the outside, working outside to clear obstacles. And that's what the CEO does. So I working on the outside is what I will continue to do. I'll continue to shape the ORP from the outside, which I have. I don't think there's anybody running who can say that they shaped the current ORP more than I have. Anybody running, okay? Because we shape it from the outside, and I can do it effectively by shaping it through ideas and shaping it through strategic plans. And I work, everybody that I work with, all my volunteers, they're all PCPs. They're all members of the party for the most part, or they're activists who will become members of the party. And so I don't need to be the chair. That's what I've said. I don't need to be the chair. I'm the one guy that doesn't need to be the chair who's running. And so it's up to you guys to decide what you'd like, where you'd like me to fight from. And normally, I don't offer choices like that to people. So I'm like, you want me to fight from here? Or you want me to fight from out here? And I'm okay either way, because if the ORP continues to go down the path that it's going, then it's just going to continue to be ineffective, and it's not really going to affect me. But it'll affect our whole state.
Thank you, Ben. Daniel?
Ben Edtl, I want to, first of all, I want to thank Chair Danny Johnson for joining us today as our referee. And I thank you very much for keeping us honest, Mr. Chair Johnson. And Ben, I thank you also very much for coming and joining us today on a longer form and more in-depth program. As you know, you usually get 2 or 3 minutes in order to make your case. And we wanted to do something a little bit longer so that people could get to know you a bit better, and all the other candidates. Now I'd like to leave it to you to make your closing argument to all of our viewers, including members of the Oregon Republican Party State Central Committee, who will be making a decision about their chair on the 22nd of February of this month, the 22nd of February. Ben, I will give the floor to you to make your closing statement.
Well, I appreciate you guys for doing this. This takes a lot of time and effort, and to do this with everybody and every candidate. So thank you for all that you do. I appreciate you challenging me academically. I am you got me hung up a few times, which is good, and we're gonna learn that stuff. But I think the big thing is really, the PC, the delegates and the SEC who are going to be electing this leader need to understand who they're electing and to what job. And I'm the only one running that's an executive that has 25 years experience as an executive. I know the job, I know the role, I know my lane, and I know what lane I shouldn't go in, and I know what lanes I need to be in. But my goal for the ORP, my vision for the ORP is relevance and a political effectiveness. We need to accomplish those two things more importantly than anything else that we do. And accountability is more of a mechanism on how we get there. So cutting that rope and giving the power, the ORP, back to the delegates is what I would do to begin that accountability. And I would follow the Josephine County Republicans and others who have declared that they're willing to hold our own accountable. If we can't hold our own accountable, we have no value, and we have no influence. We have no power. And so I want to remind everyone where we get our power from, and it's not from anybody else. We got to get it from the source, the same source that we get our inalienable rights from. And so we don't need anyone or anything to give us that power because we already have it. We just have to take it and use it. It's there for us. And so empowering the ORP is going to be my priority mission. And if I can accomplish that in 6 months or 1 year, hell, I'll step down and let someone else come in and be in charge, because I just think that this is what we need to do as a party in Oregon. We need to become relevant. And so if you vote for me, you're going to be relevant. The ORP is going to be relevant. It's going to be in the news, and we're gonna make change. And if you don't vote for me, we're probably going to go down the same path that we've been on. So I think there's that much of a difference between me and everybody else running. There's a lot of great ideas from the other candidates, I love the other candidates. They're great people. But it's time. I think we're in an emergency situation, and I think we need to go up to that red box, and we need to smash the glass and take that extinguisher out, because we're facing an emergency situation in Oregon. So I'm the guy for that job.
Ben Edtl, you've been very kind and given us 33 extra minutes more than you committed to. So we always appreciate that. And of course, to all of our viewers, we want to extend our most sincere appreciation for your attention. It's not common these days for more in-depth discussions, but we believe that talking with one another rather than past one another is the way that we're going to be making sure that Oregon moves forward together as a state. Until next time, this is Town Hall. So let's keep talking, Oregon.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We here at Town Hall 2025 wonder if maybe Oregon doesn't need more politics, but clearer politics. And maybe, just like teenagers, our politicians could benefit from clearer boundaries that you set. To support your responsibility for self-government, we are working to revive an Oregon where once we were able to disagree without being disagreeable. In the coming months, we hope to bring you, in their own words, leaders from all of our political parties. Thank you for joining us on Series 1, the race for Oregon Republican Party Chair 2025. Next up will be Series 2, the race for Democratic Party Chair 2025. I'm Daniel Crow, and this is Town Hall 2025. Until next time, let's keep talking.